Today, I ask you to have the courage to sit with some very difficult emotions. This is going to be a very rough video. There's 3 pieces of footage that I want to play, and then just kind of meditate and really feel what it is that it brings to us. One of the videos that we're going to watch is a sniper shooting a child in a field and celebrating the shot. We are going to watch a video of 4 men walking on devastated streets, getting drone strikes. And we're going to watch a group of people try to pull a dying child out of the rubble after an airstrike. And the reason that we're going to do this is to be acutely aware of a very specific sensation, that it's so urgent and it's so fast and it's so habitual, you could go your entire life without realizing that you do this. But there is a very small, probably way less than a second fraction of time, that when something makes you uncomfortable, there's a sense of needing solid ground, and I don't know a better way to put it. And I just want you to realize how much your brain scrambles to find meaning and to put labels on things and to do what it can to justify what it's seeing so that it can all be compartmentalized or categorized and sorted into something that makes you feel as if there's more order than chaos. But I think I've sufficiently given you the trigger warnings, and this isn't, we aren't going to get into the history of this today. That's a story for another day, and we are not going to get to solutions today. This is for flexing the skill and honing the awareness of the experience of discomfort regarding very difficult subject matter. So, I'm going to play the first video.
כאן 50 חיובים. נראה שהוא יוצא, אתה מוריד לו.
יש לך כדור בקנה?
להיות סופר. אתה עליו? אתה עליו? יוצא. סע, תן.
רגע, אני לא יכול לראות בגלל טלטלית. בגלל טלטלית כפרה.
מימוני, בוא לפה, בוא לפה, בוא לפה, בוא לפה.
יש שם ילד קטן.
תת?
לא.
איך הוא מתכופף תמיד בדיוק שנוקטים?
לוקח לך את הוורוד.
לא ורוד, אני על הכחול אני.
וואי, זה סרטון! יש! בן של זונה. איזה סרטון, הנה, תרוצו לפנות אותו. בטח שצילמתי את זה.
וואו, פגעו לי מישהו בראש. זה?
איזה סרטון אגדה.
מה לא ראיתי את זה, אחי? הסתכלתי על זה.
אף באוויר עם הרגל כזה.
הוא גירד את הרגל, והוא הרים את הרגל, הוא היה לו ברגל השנייה.
שחויה בן איזה זונות.
How do you feel? Is there disgust? Is there anger? Do you feel a sadness? Do you notice how quickly you've wanted some kind of justification? I mean, how long was it after the shot was fired that you told yourself some story? Maybe you said, oh, it's just some stupid soldier. Maybe you dismissed it, this person's a racist. Maybe you said that, you know, this is just violent conflict in the year that we live in. But do you feel it? Do you feel that moment where you felt like you just needed some explanation to make it seem like it's maybe not okay, but at least understandable, so you can push it aside? And what I'm asking you to do today is to not push it aside. I don't want the crutch of rationality to be a part of this meditation. I think the reason that we scramble and grasp for an explanation is to be pain relief. If it's understood, then it doesn't have to be fully felt. But I want us to sit in the furnace. And with what hurts. And I want us to honor why it hurts. I mean, we feel that anger because we want people to be treated fairly. Because we don't want people to be killed in cold blood or with some shocking level of ambivalence. So our anger exists because we feel that justice was violated. that a right to safety is violated. And even if we know that this idea of being owed security doesn't truly exist in nature, aside from perhaps animals protecting their young, we still just deeply feel it, right? That you want your kids to go to school and be safe. That you want to trust the world. That you want to trust every person that comes across you or your loved one to not be needlessly cruel or violent. Let's tap on it a little. I'm still disgusted by human cruelty. I'm still saddened by unnecessary cruelty. I'm still angry at injustice. I still want the world to be a safer place. I'm afraid I'll always feel like this. I'm afraid I'll never live in a world that's safe. I'm afraid that my loved ones aren't safe. I want to thank my body and mind for trying to make sense of the world. I honor my desire for safety. I honor my wish for the world to be a safer place. I honor my drive to protect the people that I love. I honor my drive to improve society. I thank my body for its emotions. I thank my emotions for guiding my behavior toward myself and my environment to be held to a more respectable standard. Taking a deep breath. See if I can block some noise here. When we see a video like that, can we feel the heaviness of the heart, the hardness, that tension, that feeling of dysregulation, and your disbelief that something so cowardice or unjustifiable can be carried out with glee? Do we notice how any explanation doesn't fully satisfy? To say that that's just one person, one asshole, one psycho, maybe even 1 in 100,000, maybe even 1 in a million, I don't know. But that still doesn't bring that sense of closure that we seek an explanation for. Even the most black and white narrative, this myth that there are just good people and bad people, this whole idea that, maybe that's just one of those bad people. There's nothing you can do about it. That narrative, we see why we do it, right? We feel that we want to be distant. We feel a need to separate from not only what we experience when we witness cruelty, but we want to separate ourselves from the people who perpetrate it. We want to put someone who's willing to do that in a category that we ourselves are not in. And there's a separatism to it. There's this righteous guarding, this shield that we try to put between ourselves and the behavior that disgusts us. I don't know how much of this is so noisy here. I think I'm going to stop here today. I guess we'll get to the other ones later and continue this conversation. I might have to reshoot this, I don't know. Hopefully it's not too loud around here. I don't want it picking it up. Today I woke a lot more angry than I was the last time we tried to do this session. And I think that might be the benefit in terms of exploring the depth of emotions that come with the kinds of things that we're dealing with today. So let's just breathe together for a bit. If you're familiar with Breath of Fire, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, take in a few long, deep breaths. Out. With one hand, your heart, one just below the solar plexus. Just focus on the diaphragm expanding as you breathe in. Breathe out. I also want to thank you for being here today. On this internet, you could be seeking any kind of experience that you want. You could be looking for ideologies you disagree with, or some fix of anger or righteousness. You could be on some porn site seeking your next orgasm and that experience of horniness. You could be watching some kind of comedy movie in search for your next laugh. Your time is valuable. And this internet overflows with addictive things to captivate your attention. So I thank you for choosing to sit in the discomfort of injustice with me. That you're seeking tranquility or peace or healing. That you're here to mend the wounds across these landscapes and cultures on this planet. So thank you for that. Let's watch this next clip. Notice how you feel. Did you feel shocked at how abrupt that was? Do you feel disgust that someone pulled the trigger to make that happen? Do you feel a need to justify it? Are you so desperate for an explanation that you find yourself wondering if they were previously combatants or somehow associated with some militant operation that made it okay for them to be killed? When you see that a person can be fully alive and intact, and in less than 1 second be in pieces, does it bring up feelings of vulnerability? Do you see how fragile we are as humans? Do you feel afraid? Afraid not only of human cruelty, but of the capacities of our technology? Do you find anger boiling up when you consider that your tax dollars may have gone to the bombs that killed those men? Do you notice that bombed out, desolate landscape? Do you see how shelterless it is? If buildings can be razed, there's no such thing as taking shelter from bombs, aside from being underground. But what is it bringing up in you? Does it make you more terrified of other people? Do you try to understand this difference in ideology? Is there some nagging sense that maybe some people just don't have the same heart that you do? Do you understand the historical context? Do you understand the blatant colonization that's occurring? If you know the history, you know this is not an Israel-Hamas war. You know it's a continuation of an Israel-Palestine genocide. How does that word make you feel? Didn't it seem like some outlandish thing? Like it was something that belonged in history books, or where people could be told ignorant things their whole life. It seems so out of time. Now that the internet exists, and we can see one another's cultures, we can look into the eyes of people we've never met, and we can see that they have interests, hobbies, dreams, goals, love. It's so obvious now. That people are always just people. They're trying to live their best lives. If you've been following this at all, you've seen so many fucking videos way worse than what we're looking at here today. But I want us to linger on that sense of vulnerability. That every body we've seen burned alive, every person we've seen strapped to a jeep, every person we've seen shoved off of rooftops, that this is all evidence, not only of how fragile one human life is, but how human beings can be taught to hate other human beings they've never met before. If I ask you to put yourself in the shoes of a Palestinian going on these forced marches from one city reduced to rubble to the next, in search of a safety within the confines of that fucking blockade, watching your family starve, not knowing if you will be alive within the next week, I'm sure you can feel the anger. I'm sure the injustice, the feeling of being abandoned by the world. I'm sure that can reach you. What might be more difficult is to put yourself in the shoes of an Israeli. Imagine your entire life you've been lied to about the next door neighbors you are not allowed to see. You've been told throughout your curriculum, at every step of the way, that everyone that exists outside your borders is an existential threat. That everyone outside your borders is an enemy. And that the only way to be rid of them is to kill them. Do you think you'd see through it? If it were you who were indoctrinated to become a murderer? If someone took your child mind and traumatized it with ideology? Would you have woken up? Would you have deserted? Would you have had the courage to go against your state? This state that's pretended to be your homeland and has been hiding behind your identity, the identity of your ancestors, in order to commit an endless slew of war crimes? I would like to think, and I'm sure you would too, that our heart is something spiritual and pure, that there's some soul that guides us toward loving. But I think the epigenetic reality is if I were born in Israel, or you were, you may have been taught to become completely fucking racist and violent. You may have been psychologically abused into being able to completely dissociate from your compassion when it comes to certain people. How does this make you feel? Do you feel a different kind of vulnerability? Arriving? What if your good-natured reality and heart, your sense of morality, your gentleness? What if that were stolen from you when you were so young you couldn't defend it? When I think about this, I feel something raging inside my mind, like a feral animal trying to claw its way toward any semblance of security with urgency. So much of my identity is built around this idea that there's goodness inside me. What if that goodness is only here now because my epigenetic conditions were nurturing enough that I could keep my heart alive and that I could weep for droves of thousands of people who I've never met. But do you sense that threat to your identity when we discussed it? If you're here, it's because you value this idea of having a heart, of embracing your compassion. So can you just feel that something inside your skull, like you want to defend your identity with just a savage urgency. Because I feel it too. I hate the thought that the only reason I'm a good person is because that goodness wasn't taught to be hatred instead. So let's be clear. The primary victims of this genocide are clearly the Palestinian people. And I don't know if I ever even want to be able to forgive it. But we can't forget that the genocidal state of Israel has been hiding behind the faith of Judaism, the Jewish culture, and has been using these identities as shields. Ever since its inception, ever since the Nakba, ever since before. What feelings of agency do you feel in all of this? Is there a mourning sense of powerlessness? Are you grieving the fact that you just have no agency? Does it feel like your influence is totally impossible? Focus on our bodies for a second. Notice your pulse. What tension do you need to soften? Can you release it? Can you soften your jaw? Let's watch the final clip.
لبسها زي الطوق لبسها زي الطوق خلاص عنده قاعد زحلقه طريق عم يمسك عنه حطها زي الطوق ايوه هذا النفس هذا احنا كفينا عن النفس بالضبط شغل شغلك شغل محمد حط ايدك عندك تنفس الله اكبر عايش مش فيها حاجه لا اله الا الله
Watching those men try to pull that child from the rubble. Did you feel an urgent pull to be there? To help move away the rubble? Did it feel like your heart sank, knowing you might be witnessing the death of a child? How did it feel when they succeeded? When the man carried the child away? When you could tell that kid's still alive? Did you sense that ease of tension, that thankful relief? Did you feel that burst of hope that it's going to be okay? Do you feel futility? A sadness? That you, A, couldn't be there, and B, can't stop it from happening again? Does it feel like anything in your power to do just isn't enough? I want us to accept our rage for this. I want you to understand that it's okay to be furious that your tax dollars, instead of going toward infrastructure or therapy or food for people starving in your own country, that somehow they went to this. It's okay to have that raging animal of a thought inside of you. That creature that's so desperate for protection, for security. That values safety so much that injustice is appalling and enraging. $40,000 people exterminated. Within the first 9 months. It's such an incomprehensible number. How many different people do you think you've had conversations with throughout the course of your entire life? Maybe 10,000? Maybe if your job is something where you talk to people one-on-one as part of it, maybe it's even higher. But we should be angry that human life is seen as something with minimal value. That survivalist creature inside of us should be sharpening its claws. We just need to maintain the presence of mind that it is not our neighbor that's our threat. Let's thank this anger for the fuel that it gives us. Let's thank it for its willingness to tear down violent structures that do not work to protect people. Let's acknowledge this indignation and thank it and welcome it. Because if this rage is channeled toward devastating systems of structural violence, then this anger helps us create a more safe and nurturing world that we wish we could have. And maybe with this anger and its fuel used well, maybe we can be good ancestors. Maybe generations from now they'll be proud of us for screaming and rattling the cages of our prisons. Maybe our grandchildren will be so proud of us. For screaming at our prime ministers and our president. For causing the loss of hundreds of thousands of dollars to companies that support colonialism. The fact is, the home that I wish existed on this planet does not, and it will not in our lifetime. There's no such thing as safety from violence on this planet as it exists now. So let's be ancestors that our grandsons and granddaughters can be proud of by fucking raging. By finding ways to destroy and dismantle these systems. So we can stand in solidarity and not fucking negotiate. Present our list of demands and say that this is the price for peace. You want your fucking status quo? Everyone eats. Everyone gets medical treatment. And if you say no for any reason, we're gunning for your fucking patent. We're gunning for your bottom line. You stole the world from us. To hell with capitalism where it belongs. And thank you again for being here with me.